Now, what sets Christianity apart from every other religion? Why is Christianity the only true religion? How are we supposed to explain this? Well, think of it like this. Okay, in every religion, they follow one distinct pattern, and that's a list of rules, obey them, and you die, and you're going to be held accountable by some weird force, whether it's Buddhism where nothing decides reincarnation, Hinduism where like an elephant with a hat on and a bunch of people with like 9 arms, they're going to decide where you're reincarnated, or whereas Christianity, you're going to die and be held accountable for your decisions. Islam, Judaism, Scientology, I think, is weird alien stuff. I'm not even going to try to assume what goes on there. But that's basically the pattern that every religion follows. Now tell me, this is how you essentially debunk every other religion. But because you're an atheist, you're not going to understand this. But if you have any religious faith in anything, whether it be Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, you're going to understand this perfectly fine. Let's just go by the Ten Commandments because most religions seem to follow this rule. Or not this rule, but this pattern of conduct, if you will. Or at least the second half of them. Most people say lying is bad. Now you could say, well, they're just little white lies. Well, even a white lie is deceiving someone and completely jacking up their reality and causing them to live in a false world for the rest of their lives. So even white lies are horribly bad. And if you want to really take that argument apart, go ahead, but I'm not even going to reply to it. How do you undo a lie? Do you tell the truth and then you never did that crime? So if you tell a lie, you break the law, and then you tell the truth, does that undo the crime? In some religions like Hinduism where you have to earn your karma, then yes. Now if you steal something, how do you undo that? Do you give it back? Because if you steal something and give it back, does that undo the crime? You could say yes. Let's say you cheat on your spouse. Most people say that this is wrong. Now everyone seems to want to justify having sex outside of marriage. So let's go ahead and just humor them and just, for the sake of argument, we're going to go ahead and say that when you're married, how do you undo committing adultery? How do you undo that? There really isn't any way to do that. Okay, now let's go to the worst sin of all, as humanity views it. Murder. How do you undo murder? Meaning, how do you atone for that? How do you make it so that if you were to commit this horrible, horrible crime, how are you right with God after you've done that? There's just no way. Now, you could go the Lord of the Rings approach, where you essentially sell yourself to the father or spouse or whoever was a close relative of the person that died. If you were the cause of their death, you could do that. But that's never going to really undo the damage that's been done. It's just a cheap substitute. Like really bad granola bars from Walmart. It's just a cheap substitute, alright? So tell me, in those religions, how do you atone for crimes? Because what if you were caught embezzling money and you did all these horrible crimes in your business and you got caught and you were in court standing before the judge and you said, well, judge, I gave all the money back. Does that undo the crime? No, it doesn't. Just like if you punch someone in the face and give them a black eye, just because the black eye heals doesn't mean that the crime has been undone. It just means that the direct damage have been undone. Just like if you get an F on your report card, let's say next semester you get an A, is that F gone? No, it's just been sort of covered up by that A. And even then, on your total at the end of the year, it's going to bring you down a bit. So tell me, how are you supposed to atone for these crimes if you've committed them? How do you atone for murder and how do you atone for sexual immorality? How do you undo it? You can't. And see, this is the problem, is that all these other religions, They are all about self-improvement. Turn to God, and then God will, like, oh no, that's Christianity, my bad. Okay, basically these other religions are all like, here, you need to come into our church. We're going to give you this laundry list to do. And then now I'm going to use Mormonism just because Mormonism is probably the most... Shut up. I'm just going to use Mormonism. In Mormonism, you're supposed to go... Okay, this is how you receive the highest level of exaltation in Mormonism, from what I understand. You have to go to the church. You have to get a sealing to your spouse. You have to get married to be with God in Mormonism. You have to wear your temple garments, which is like really weird underwear, which I looked on Google and that stuff looks weird. You have to obey all the laws and commandments. You have to go through all the ceremonies. You have to go through this whole laundry list of things that are nowhere in the Bible, mind you. And then after you do it, then you are acceptable, and then you are holy, and then you can go to God. Every religion has this. In Buddhism, you have to suffer to get rid of desire. You have to essentially discipline yourself so that you become holy and good, and you can get reincarnated as a better and better person over and over again until you finally reached perfection to escape the cycle, and then you can achieve nirvana, which is like this weird, like, hot tub of good feelings, I guess. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but that's what I came upon in my research. Hinduism is essentially the same thing, except instead of a weird hot tub of good feelings, you become part of God, I think, or something like that, which to me just sounds weird. I don't think I would want to be a part of God. Islam is the same way. You have to pray to Mecca 5 times a day. You have to not eat meat. You can't, not eat meat. You have to not eat pork, specifically. I don't know why. I don't know what made pigs so special. Just like with Hinduism and cows. I don't know what's with these religions that have special animals. I don't know why. And then after you do all this stuff that the church requires of you, then you're good. Then you can go to heaven and live with God after you do all this list. But tell me, if you have dirt on your hands, how are you supposed to clean up dirt? Now you could say get a broom, but this is we're talking about morality. There is no moral broom that just comes in and sweeps up all your dirt under the couch. All right, you cannot do that. You can't just be a serial killer one day and then just decide you're not going to be one anymore the next day. That's just not how it works. I'm sorry. You just can't do that. So, in all this, tell me, how do you atone? How are you supposed to fix yourself? You can't. What makes Christianity so unique is that you have that moral broom that comes in. But the thing is, it doesn't sweep it up all under the rug, covered in the rug of your good deeds. It doesn't just cover it up and makes you look good. It completely destroys the sin that is in you. Now, don't get me wrong. When you become a Christian, you're not automatically a good person. You're just someone who has been helped. See, Christianity is not the best of the best around. Nothing's ever going to keep us down. We are Santa's broken toys. We are the lowest of the lowest. See, this is what makes Christians worse than everybody else. We admit that sin is the worst of the worst things you could ever possibly do, and we still do it. Whereas these other religions have really righteous men who admit that something is wrong, so they don't do it. And if they do it, then they punish themselves with really weird ceremonies and things to purify themselves. I'm not really unsure. Okay. So that is what separates Christianity from every other religion, is that in every other religion, you save yourself. Whereas in Christianity, Jesus saves you. Now, do you understand that? Do you understand why every other religion is essentially proven false by that logic? That you cannot undo a crime. For example, let's say you were caught guilty of all these crimes and you had to pay a fine of X amount of dollars that you just couldn't pay because it was just so much money. You just can't pay that. So in Christianity, you have someone who pays that fine for you. That is what makes it so different, is that you cannot fix yourself. You cannot undo your crimes. However, you do have someone who suffered the punishment for you, so that if you accept his offer, you can go through the narrow gates and go straight to God. There is no lower level of heaven. There is no levels of being close to God. There are levels of rewards, but it's not closeness to God. Through Jesus Christ. And what he did it for us. We can't do it. Because of him, we go straight to God.